All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Austin Erickson. I'm a member of the Surreal Lab, and I will be presenting this part of the tutorial, which is on agent gestures. So we've got our screen share set up here so that we have our slides up there in the top left and our Unity view, which is a little smushed horizontally, but we should still be able to see everything that we need to see over there. So if you're following along, go ahead and either open up the project that you have from the Hull section, or go ahead and open up the second scene, the expression scene, and save that as a new scene that we can continue to work on for this part of the tutorial. So in this section, what we're going to be focusing on is getting our Remy character model to be able to perform certain gestures on key press or GUI press. So first up, we're going to link them to key presses. To do this, we need to get two different gestures. So we're going to go back to the Mixamo website, and we're going to download both an idle animation for Remy as well as a waving animation. So I've got the Mixamo website pulled up over here. You can see we have our Remy model loaded. If you don't have him here, you'll probably need to sign in when you get to this web page. Then you'll want to click on the Characters tab up there at the top and search for Remy. And then when you've got him pulled up, you can switch back to the Animations tab and start to look for animations that we like. So the first one we're going to look at is an idle animation. And this website has a bunch of different styles. So first thing you'll probably notice is that some of these are more for like video games or for other types of simulations or applications. So we probably don't want an idle animation of him looking like this. Instead, we want something more laid back, more straightforward, since he's just going to be our virtual agent here. He's not going to be taking place in any action. So saying we like this this idle animation, it's very subtle. We go ahead and hit download. It's going to bring up this little window that asks you for a couple settings. We want the FBX for Unity, and then we do want it, we can actually do without skin, since we already have that Remy model downloaded and imported into our Unity project. So go ahead and click download, and then when it asks, you can go ahead and save that into the Unity project directory, assets / 3D models. That'll be an easy place to look for it. So give me just a second here while I do that. Alright, so we've got that one downloaded. The other one that we want to grab while we're here is a waving animation. That's what we are going to be using as a demonstration for this part of the tutorial. But you guys following along can feel free to choose really any animation that you want. It doesn't make too big of a difference. So what we are going to pick is this waving, and we'll do the same exact thing. We're just going to go ahead and download that. Also FBX for Unity, also without skin, since we already have that. That just saves us a little bit. So I'm going to hit cancel because I already do have that one downloaded. So once you have both of those downloaded and placed into the project in the assets / 3D models folder, we can go ahead and keep going. So what we want to do next is to go ahead and right click in the project panel, and we're going to create a new animation controller. So if you go into the project panel here, mine is kind of scrunched at the moment, hit 3D models, that's a good place to put it. And we'll go ahead and we'll right click, we'll hit create, and then there should be animator controller about halfway down the list. So I'm going to do this, I'm going to name mine slightly different because I do already have a copy of this, but you should go ahead and name yours Remy controller. So once you've done that, you'll be able to see that sitting there in that folder. So we'll go ahead and double click that, and that's going to pull up the animator window in Unity. So it's going to look kind of bare. You'll see two green squares, one that says any state and the other says entry. These just allow us to set up different animations to link to our Remy character, or to any character in general. So what we're going to want to do is go ahead and look for those animations that we just downloaded from Mixamo. So there's going to be one that is Remy at idle if you left the default name. And then there's going to be another one which is Remy at waving. So go ahead and drag those from that project panel into this grid that you see in the animator window. And it looks like mine kind of set up half of what I wanted to do automatically here. So this idle animation is going to be just a looping animation that he's constantly doing when, unless he's doing some other action. So what we want to do is make sure that that is hooked up to that entry node. What this means is that when Unity starts and we hit play, it will go straight from entry into that idle animation. But at the moment it's only set up to play one time. So what we want to do is go ahead and right click that, select make transition, and then click it again. You'll see it has that little triangle at the bottom. That means that after it's done playing that animation, it's just going to start it right over again. So he'll constantly have just a little bit of motion that makes him seem a little more human-like than if he's perfectly still. So we'll go ahead, once you've got that, we'll go ahead and set up that waving animation next. So this one's a little different. We don't want him waving in a continuous loop, and we don't want him to just wave at any random time. So what we want to do is trigger this event on a key press or a GUI press, and then when it's done playing that waving animation, you want it to go back into that idle animation where he was before. So for this, we want to hit right-click that waving node, select Make Transition, and this time click the idle animation again. So this will make him wave once, and then go back to his default animation after he's done that. So pretty straightforward so far. The next step is to link this animator controller that we've made to our Remy character. So if you click him in the inspector window, in the hierarchy window, then his first component under the transform should be animator. You'll see mine's already linked to Remy controller. That's one I built ahead of time. But if we go ahead and select demo controller, that's the one I just made here. So that is linked. So now when we press play, he should go right into his idle animation. And you can see him doing that. He's moving around just slightly. But right now we have no way to trigger that, that waving animation. So that'll be our next step. So key press activation is a really simple way to hook up these kind of animations. So what we're going to do is just go ahead and set up a very simple C# script that lets us press the W button, W for wave. He'll wave once, and then he'll trigger back to his idle animation. So what we want to do is go ahead and click the scripts directory in the project panel, and then we're going to go ahead and create a new script. So you'll right click, hit create, and you'll go over to C# script. When you do that, you're going to want to go ahead and name it something like waving control, and I have that pre-written here. So I'll just open that up. But what you are going to see is this code that I have in the slides. So in the update function, we want to be looking for this input.getKeyDown key code W. That means whenever the W button is pressed, it's going to head and trigger this wave signal. So go ahead and either copy and paste that or open the pre-written script that you should have in the scripts folder if you downloaded our project. Or if you want to free code it, that's fine too. It's only a couple lines. After you've written that step, we're going to go ahead and make this a public function, the wave signal. And this is going to call Remy's animator component, and it's going to play that waving animation that we already made. I also have a quick debug log, so it will log to the console that that button is being pressed and that that code is being recognized. Not necessary, but useful for debugging sometimes. Another quick thing I want to point out though is that in this code where it says waving in quotation marks, that is specific to whatever you whatever animation you downloaded from Mixamo. So in our animator controller, we see our node is waving, spelled exactly the same way. So ours is set up correctly. If for some reason you downloaded a different animation, go ahead and replace that waving in quotations to whatever the name of that node is that we're trying to trigger. Alright, so we've got that written. At this point, you're going to want to go ahead and drag that onto the Remy object. So let me see here. We'll go ahead and drag waving control onto Remy. That's going to open up a new component in the inspector window for him. So way down here at the bottom, we see waving control, and it has this empty link to the Remy animator. So what we want to do there is go ahead and link his own animator to that. So if we can do that in two ways. The easiest way is to drag Remy's name from the hierarchy on the left all the way over to that empty box down here in the bottom right. What that does is it takes this controller variable from the animator and it plugs it in for us. So at this point, everything should be linked. We should be able to go ahead and trigger that animation on key press. So let's go ahead and press play and see what we can do here. So go ahead and click into the game window and press W, and we can see it works. He's waving. So cool. After this, we're going to go ahead and get started with the locomotion tutorial. So we'll be back in just a second.